podcast, and today we're actually going to do something, rather important. I'd say, maybe rather useful. Past few days I didn't have that much time, therefore there were just some, pretty shitty videos. But what is really interesting, and I think is quite, it is an experience. I would say, it is like a factor that I can take in consideration for following decisions whatsoever. I do really like the podcast, and I do also really like to practice my English. I think up to this point it was quite useful, especially the talking part. At this point, I don't know why, but my spelling is so shit these days. It's incredible, but it is what it is. Today we're gonna go through another book. I actually really need to take care of Christmas presents. I'm a bit feared that they're not gonna arrive on time, but I guess it should be fine. I don't know. I do have a strong opinion on many things, as well as Christmas. So anyway, I think there were some book recommendations by Andrew Huberman. I've seen a post, I think. Maybe I've been Googling for it, I don't really remember. But we're gonna check them out and then decide on those recommendations, which books we are gonna go through, or which book we are gonna go through. It is a bit small here, I think, or is it? This is something else, I'd assume. Oh no, it is actually really big. Never mind. There we go. I think this is fine, is it? Let's put away the microphone a bit more. We fear that it is too loud. Sometimes it is way too silent. Something also to take care of. It is really not nice. We have Hooked. We have Breath, the Science of a Lost Art, which is interesting. He's often talking about breathing. Chaos, Charles Manson, the CIA, and the Secret History of the 60s. The Nature of the Beast, How Emotions Guide Us. This is actually really interesting. Finding Ultra, Principles of Neurobiology. And it's the 4-Hour Chef, as well as The Prince of Medicine, Galen, I guess. I don't think that is Galen or whatever. In the Roman Empire by Susan P. Mettler. Or Metlan, I don't really know. Let's see if we can find something of the Nature of the Beast really quickly. There is a book summary, The Nature of the Beast, by Game Chess Series or something. Kirkus reviews. There's also, I think, unless it is a really niche book, or it is a non-fictional book that has something to do with a specific field, not like self-development or self-improvement, or this whole scheme thing, I think it could be definitely pretty hard to find, but I think at this point there's quite, for every single fucking book that I've not everyone, but I think at this point there probably is a book summary for quite everything that one is looking for. Excerpt reading group guide. No, this is not a good one. Let's click through all of them and see which of them is the longest, and then I guess we're gonna decide based on that. Okay. The Nature of the Beast. Let's see, actually, kirkusreviews.com. These are all like just the review The Nature of the Beast. Macmillan. Is it actually by Macmillan? David J. Anderson. Maybe. I should also mention that basic books, I do really just, there's a YouTube video, there's also Big Think. Maybe we're just also gonna go through this article by Big Think, I guess, maybe. Yeah, I guess so. So what are emotions? By the way, it was from April 1st, 2022. What are emotions? Neuroscientific research on animals may finally settle the debate. And there stands OBJ for whatever reason. Revolutionary techniques for understanding brain functions in animals could soon help us understand how emotions guide our lives. I think it is quite clear, is it, or isn't it, that emotions do really play an incredibly huge part when it comes to one's life. So this definitely should be kept in mind, I'd say. This definitely should be considered. Except from the Nature of the Beast, How Emotions Guide Us by David J. Anderson, copyright 2022, available from Basic Books, an imprint of Hatchet Book Group Inc. or whatever. A child pummels a classmate in a schoolyard. Insults traded in a tavern escalate into a bar fight. Two rams put horns on a mountain. What, precipice or something? A pride of lionesses takes down a Cape buffalo. Malevolent mob storms the Capitol. I don't fucking know. A mass shooter slaughters scores of concert goers from a hotel window. All these examples are naked acts of aggression. They are overt behaviors that can be recognized and recorded in words or on video. However, at least in the case of humans, they are also accompanied by something we cannot see, an internal subjective experience of emotion by the person committing the act. Witness any of the above situations and you might assume that the assailants, I guess, feel anger, rage, or fury. But unless they specifically tell us how they feel, how can we ever really know what emotions they are experiencing, or indeed if they are experiencing any emotion at all? And what about the experience of animals whom we cannot even ask? Clearly there is some connection between aggressive behavior and things like anger and rage. It is difficult to imagine being driven to commit such violent acts without an underlying emotional drive. Yet, our intuition and experience tell us that anger and aggression are not the same thing. After all, one can certainly feel angry without physically expressing that feeling as aggression. Is anger generated separately and independently from aggressive behavior in the brain, or are they different manifestations of the same process? Does anger cause aggression? Does aggression cause anger? Is there no causal relationship between the two? Ultimately, these questions can only be attended to after we've answered a more fundamental one. What exactly are emotions and what do they do for us? Which I think is a very good question, especially what are they doing for us? I think relatively often, maybe even predominantly, I think it just really depends on how you see life and how you see things. Emotions might be things or might be something that most often is bothering you for whatever reason. I have a very strong emotions of aggression and anger. This has, I think, quite always been the case. It, of course, through puberty and whatever shit, you might be developing or, upgrading those abilities or whatever. But it definitely can be really, restricting me in certain ways. Of course, it is not nice for the people around me, especially those that are very close to me when I'm just, getting really angry, maybe throwing shit around and whatever. I have actually done a separate video on anger and also on childhood trauma and anger, which is very interesting, based on works from Gabor Mate, who is also a very interesting personality and definitely should be looked up and read, I think. I've also done a few episodes on him. He was also on the Tim Ferriss show and so on and so forth. Anyway, yeah, emotions I think can quite often be pretty nerve-taking, yes, or just pissing you off. Anyway, the problem is that despite centuries of inquiry on the topic, we don't know. Not only that, but scientists cannot even agree on what an answer should look like. There are easily half a dozen different perspectives people bring to the study of emotion: psychological, cognitive, sociological, and anthropological, philosophical, and neuroscientific. Researchers in these disciplines don't speak the same language or understand things in the same terms. A psychologist seeks to explain emotions in terms of human drives, needs, and conflicts. A neuroscientist seeks to explain them in terms of patterns of brain activity. Some people want to explain a particular emotion like sadness or fear. Others want to understand in a general way, what makes emotion different from other kinds of brain processes. Not only are we the proverbial blind man grasping different parts of the elephant and trying to describe what we're holding, but we don't even have the same word for elephant. Given this intellectual diversity and lack of consensus, it is not surprising that there have been many books espousing new theories of emotion. Most of them, certainly most of the theories that make their way into the public conversation, originate in psychology, which I think really makes sense. Such theories are interesting and powerful, but they are often very abstract and hard to falsify by experiment. The perspective of this book is very different. I believe that neuroscience can offer us a way of thinking about emotions that is objective and empirical, and it gives us the tools to begin studying questions about emotions that have been seen difficult that some have written them off as unsolvable. But first, a little background. Neuroscientists studied diverse animal species, including humans, to understand how their neurons and circuits within their brains give rise to internal drives and behavior. Neuroscientists use a variety of methods to measure and manipulate the activity of neurons in the brain. They also build computer models of brain function based on these data. This allows for an intricate causal understanding of brain function, and at its most basic level, neuroscience offers the hope that when we understand the brain in sufficient detail, we will be able to explain how its activity gives rise to both behavior and emotion. Which I think is very interesting. I'm just, thinking if there might be some drawbacks. Of course, people might be exploiting that, but because everything has been exploited up to this point, I'd say quite everything, in some way or another. But I do really like to see that, and it is actually also quite interesting for me to see throughout my lifespan what changes, on one hand changes in terms of, okay, this is what we have believed before and this is what we believe now, but also things that are entirely new. What have we figured out? What is going to be new for just the next 10 generations, quote unquote, below me? It is very interesting. In general, I think everything around the brain is very interesting, including things like meditation and what it does and studies on that. And I also really like to see that there are studies on that. I think more now than in the past, which I think kind of maybe sometimes demystifies the whole body and the brain, and just gives some clearance to the people, and maybe even really underline certain practices that people might say are really woo-woo, like, I don't know, yoga or qigong or whatever it is, and really like just underlining their or the possibility that they're actually changing something in the brain, or that they are helping us in some way or another, or this, that, and the other thing. I don't know. It actually would be very interesting to see how positive people are. I mean, there might be definitely certain studies around that, like how happy are the people in general, the general population, their happiness. Of course, Bhutan and whatever there was back in the days, which had a really high score, the best score regarding that. But still, it might be also, we might then be able to maybe produce better medicine for people with or better treatment, therefore also as well for, people that are depressed or have, certain mental illnesses and whatever. I think very, very, very good field and very important field. In general, everything that has to do with medicine, I think, is quite important compared to certain, maybe certain studies that may just be of interest for certain people and certain communities. Perhaps you already agree with me about the value of neuroscience. Maybe you even believe I am behind the times, and that this question has already been settled. For example, you may have read that fear is produced by activity in a brain structure called the amygdala. Aren't there many studies in which neuroscientists put people in brain scanners and show that when they are afraid, that amygdala lights up, that is becomes more active? If that is the case for fear, then surely something similar must also be true for anger. So isn't the only thing left to do to figure out where anger and rage live in the brain? Can't we just put people in brain scanners, have some watch what happens in the brain when they get angry, and then repeat the same process for different emotions until we have mapped them all? In a word, no. Brain scanning experiments, technically known as functional magnetic resonance imaging or fMRI, do not directly visualize electrical activity in the brain, rather they imagine blood flow to a particular area. I didn't know about that. Consequently, they provide only a very coarse-grained view of brain activity. More important, such experiments only provide correlative data. If we observe activity somewhere in a person's brain while they say they are afraid or angry, we cannot know whether the brain activity is causing the emotion or the emotion is causing the brain activity. Furthermore, relying on what a subject says they are feeling, that is, verbal report, is not necessarily an accurate way to assess that person's subjective feelings. A subject can mischaracterize or even lie about what they feel, which, certainly I would wonder about, like, why would you do that? But I think sometimes, as the first part suggests, mischaracterize. This person might not even know what anger really is, or that this certain emotion that they do not identify as anger is actually anger, because they might think that, it is like, I don't know, jealousy or some other shit, whatever. A subject can blah, 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 blah. What is more, it is quite difficult in practice to induce an authentic bona fide emotion in a human subject in a brain scanner, because the subjects know they are in an experiment and have all kinds of distractions, like the noise in a scanner, people running around in white lab coats, etc. There is some bit left. I think that I'm gonna finish it the next time and maybe add something to it, because it is not that much anymore. But with that being said, I really hope that I've been able to share something or read through something, give you an audiobook on something that is interesting to you, and I'm hopefully going to see you the next time. So